AGM of the Lichfield and Hatherton Canals Restoration Trust. My name is Carol Mills, I'm the current chair of the trust, and it's wonderful to see you all here on this sunny Friday evening. I'd like to say a particularly warm welcome to our President Eric Wood. Good to see you, Eric. Our Vice President Sir David Suchet and Lady Sheila Suchet, thank you very much for joining us. Our patron Chris Coburn, nice to see you too. And all our members, trustees, officers, supporters, local councillors, and of course everybody online. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So I'll just run through how it's going to work this evening. So the AGM is in two parts. The formal business will come first, and then there'll be a 15-minute break for refreshments, comfort break, and also to have a look at our shop, which is at the back of the room, so please do go and have a look at that. And then the second half will feature a really interesting talk from our guest speaker, Nick Mott. He's the River Restoration Manager at the Staffordshire Wildlife Trust. We're looking forward to that. Now there will be a number of issues on which to vote because it is an AGM. So this will normally be by a trustee or an officer or one of you indeed proposing the matter, somebody else seconding it, and then it'll be followed by a show of hands from those present. But I will read you through that so that we all know where we are. But before we begin the official business, please could we all just pause for a moment to remember those LHCRT members and volunteers whom we've sadly lost since last time we met here at last year's AGM. Thank you, everybody. So we'll now move to item 1 on our agenda. We've received 22 apologies from members and some local councillors. Are there any apologies that haven't yet been notified directly to us? No? We'll take the list as read then. Thank you. Can I draw your attention to item 2, please, which is the minutes of the 32nd AGM held on the 10th of June 2022. Are there any errors, omissions or amendments? No? Could I have somebody to propose that we accept the minutes? Thank you, Peter. And somebody to second? Yep. Thank you. So can I put that proposal to the vote by a show of hands, please? We accept those? Thank you very much. Are there any matters arising from those minutes? No? Thank you. So we'll move on to item 4A, which is the Chair's report. And I'll keep this short because I don't want to steal the thunder away from my colleagues who are going to go through some of the details with you. But first of all, can I refer you to our annual report? This is the second year we've had a glossy version of this. And I just wanted to thank our colleague Christine Howells, who's our comms and marketing professional, who has put this together for us in very short order. Thank you very much. I do hope that you'll find it an interesting read. What it does show that we've had a really great year and there's been a lot happening. So I just want to say that we've also looked behind the scenes at establishing a new strategy. We've reorganised our board last year and we've built on that. And we now have a new operational plan for 2023-24, which is intended to help us to prioritise and focus and achieve getting much more of the canal into water much sooner than we otherwise would. Now, we are an entirely volunteer-led charity. Nothing happens without our wonderful volunteers. And we have some wonderful volunteers who are out in all weathers, literally. We've had every type of weather, cold, hot, everything in between, wet and windy. They're there, working on the front line. We also have people working behind the scenes to account for everything we do, to raise money, to make sure that the governance is right, to do all the planning and all the organising. It's a huge amount of work and none of this is paid. We all do this in our spare time. And it's even more amazing when you think that some people are still working full time and do this in their very rare spare time at the weekends, or they're still working part time. So I just wanted to thank everybody who supports the trust in whatever way. It's just marvellous. We've had a number of operational successes, but I'm going to ask my colleagues to cover those for you in just a moment. So please do read the annual report. Can I have somebody to propose to receive my report, please?
Yep.
Thank you. Somebody to second? Thank
I'll
you.
second it.
Oh, thank you, Colin. Can we put that proposal to accept my report? Thank you very much. Okay, so we're now going to get on to the director's reports, and the first person is, of course, Peter, who is going to take us through engineering and construction. Peter.
Thank you very much, Carol. My first challenge is I've got 2.5 hours of notes here, so I've got to reduce that down to 2.5 minutes, so let's go. This year again, our dedicated and hard-working trust volunteers, together with visiting corporate groups and DOE students and many other groups, have risen to the challenge and made incredible advances in the restoration of the Lichfield Canal. The AGM report you've all been issued with you sets out a summary of the great deal of the achievements this year. In addition to the 600 metres of environmental hedge and bund the Trust have completed along Falkland Road, with a further 250 metres which has been created along Tamworth Road, our volunteer team at Old Lock 24 on the Tamworth Road have created a new low-level channel, complete with new walls and low-level towpath. Many thousands of tonnes of material have been excavated to form this lowered channel in this area, and the surplus soil has been moved to create part of the lowland heathland at Fossway Nature Reserve. And more recently, some 2,000 tonnes of material was moved to the Darnford Moors Ecology Park. This was to reprofile some 500 metres of canal channel and towpath, and then move again another 4,000 tonnes of sands and gravels into the old winding hole area as a preliminary works ahead of the channel lining works, which are currently being undertaken by our subcontractor on site. Our Trust volunteer teams at Darnford Moors have carried out extensive remedial works to over 300 metres of the steel sheet piling, which was installed many years ago, and created a new section of towpath in this area. Our Trust volunteers with corporate groups and DOE students have also taken on the challenge of maintenance of miles of completed towpaths and nature trails. It's a massive job in itself. None of the above works could be achieved without the work by Trust officers and volunteers working behind the scenes. And not to forget our plant team, led by Steve Webster, who work round the clock to repair and maintain our ageing construction plant fleet for our restoration work. And also a heartfelt thank you to our Trust friends and sponsors, which with their generosity has allowed the Trust volunteers to achieve our restoration goals to restore the Lichfield Canal for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Could I ask members present to receive Peter's report by show of hands? Thank you very much. Right, we're now on to item 4C, which is the environment report, and I'm going to ask Chris Ball to make that report to you. Chris.
Well, I have to say I have no idea that we actually planted 4,600 hedging rips. I think we did have a bit of help from some corporate volunteers. You lost count. Yes. 1, 2. That was along Fossway, Falkland Road and Tamworth Road. I'm always mindful on this spot that we're actually reporting on 2022, even though we're halfway through 2023. So I've tried to keep it to the 2022 work. Probably the most difficult job was finding the marker posts across Muckley Common that Peter had put in with the agreement of the local council, and which were easily that high, but we actually needed rakes and a high vis to try and get a line. This is Duke of Edinburgh volunteers, trying to find where the next one might be, and then hacking down the brambles that were that thick. So that was, I mean, some little, the DOE's works, they have to be working spaced out in little groups of 3 or 4 And they ran up competitions as to who could find the first post of the session, and tallying up how many they'd sell. Marvellous how you motivate these youngsters. We also cut an awful lot of scrub by Mutley Corner. We had, as a DOD volunteer early on in 2022, did a back survey for us. It so happens, as a Duke of Edinburgh volunteering project, it so happens his dad runs Chase Ecology and is a bit of a bat specialist. And I do have, if anybody's interested, I do have a superb, very professional bat survey of Tamworth Road, and they donated 5 bat boxes to us, 2 of which are up on Tamworth Road. Ecological work at Dartford Moors actually is more bramble bashing, really, and some planting, and digging up some bricks as well to recycle. I think that's about it, to try and keep it in the nutshell.
Thank you very much, Chris. So can I ask members to receive Chris's report by a show of hands, please? Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to item 4D now, which is our next director's verbal report, and it's planning and technical this time, and it's Derek Lord. Please, Derek.
Yeah, evening everybody. First of all, you'll note that it is now planning and technical in one, but this comes from the review of last year, and it makes it easier in dealing with integrating planning and getting consents and technical consents as well. So basically what I do is I work with the local authorities to ensure that the canals are protected, both the Lichfield and the Hatherton, where new development takes place. We try to work with the developers and encourage them to contribute towards the restoration of the canal, and you'll have seen that has been very successful with Persimmon Homes in the St John's area, and also moving forward to Cricket Lane. You'll be aware that over the years we've had a great deal of difficulty at Deanslade with Taylor Wimpey, who did not want to work with us at all and were in denial about the canal. We've had some success last year in getting the council to accept that their drainage was not going to work and it would adversely affect the canal. We were supported by the county council, and we also got support from Michael Fabricant, who contacted their chief executive, who decided perhaps they did want to try and work with us. So that's ongoing. We are hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst, because unfortunately, until you've got something nailed down with developers, things can go awry. The liaison with Lichfield District Council in particular has improved over the last year, and we now have regular meetings with the new planning officer. We're automatically consulted now on any planning application in proximity to the Lichfield Canal, which is good. And we've been working with them to get the Tamworth Road planning application through as soon as possible. The work on that has improved with them, they're being cooperative. And the expectation is that within the next couple of months we will get that approved. That will release the money that they've provided through the construction infrastructure levy, and we will then be able to commence work on restoring Tamworth Road. Behind that, we have a list of other planning applications that we want to progress. That includes St John's, the Persimmon site. It includes the Portland Road area, and also Dartford Park, where we need to discharge conditions. So the idea is that we now have a rolling programme of getting approvals so that we can have work in advance, so we've got volunteers coming behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Derek. Can I ask that members receive Derek's report? Again by show of hands, please. Thank you very much. Right, we're now on to item 4E, which is our next director's verbal report, and this time it's communications and marketing, and Christine Howe. Christine, please.
Good evening. Well, hopefully, I don't interpret you've seen all the things that we talked about. So, one thing you won't know, Carol mentioned that we have launched our new strategy, and I'm really pleased that part of that, one of the strands of that is communications and marketing. So, what we're aiming to do is continue to raise awareness, to keep people informed, and to make sure we give a positive image. Now, one of the ways we do that is through social media, and I'm going to hand you with some figures, hopefully. All of our channels have increasing popularity year on year, but we're now at the point, we're at the end of last year, where we had 14,000 followers across all. Facebook and YouTube are our most popular channels, and everyone's on YouTube tonight as well, so that's nice. So we get so much support through Facebook and YouTube, it's unbelievable. If you go on and look at comments, there's so many nice comments. And it's not just about raising awareness. I would say the majority of our new members come to us through social media. So coming on to membership, last year we had a net gain of 130 new members, which took us to 2,423. And as I say, a lot of those came through social media, particularly YouTube, all across the world. Not forgetting, behind the scenes, we have our wonderful website, and I want to give a big thanks to Paul over there, who is our web administrator. He works really hard to keep that up to date, and he's done some really good work recently. I'll give you some more figures. Last year we had 26,400 visitors to the website.
Incredible.
So if you thought social media following was good, website's even better. And the website's really important because that's where our new members come from, that's where they apply, that's where we get new volunteers. And the maps page is one of the most popular pages, I think. Moving on to events. Last year we had our first full year after COVID, and we raised 26,673 on events. And two highlights for me were Eric's coffee morning.
During coffee morning.
Well, yeah. And of course the Brown Hills Festival, just down the road here. Just looking forward in the strategy, one of the things that we're looking to do is to modernise the brand, and you'll see sneak preview that we've got a new logo, refreshed logo, the annual report, and we've modernised cut both ways, so onward and upward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Again, can I ask members to receive and note Christine's report, please? Thank you very much. Okay, we're now on item 5, which is the Treasurer's report and presentation of the accounts for the year ended 31st of December 2022. And we have got Williams, please.
Yeah, this is where it changed the tone of the meeting, isn't it? You all know what money looks like. You've either got it or you haven't. Can I just digress a little bit on this occasion? You might notice that I'm wearing a Progress Appeal sweatshirt from 25 years ago, in tribute to our patron Chris Coburn, who's joined us from the River Thames, especially to be here tonight. Chris, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
But together with our departed friend Lawrence Hogg, known to some of you in the past, video maker, Chris made several offshore voyages in his narrow progress to publicise the plight of the then proposed M6 toll in providing navigable crossings for the Lichfield and Hatherton Canals. Well, this supported our trust, which led the government to change their national transport policy in 2001 to preserve all canals from adverse development. Then David Suchet popped out of the crowd and led the nation with David Suchet funding appeals, the first of 4. I well remember David working with you at that time. And together with Chris, and Lawrence Hogg has gone, and David's here now, thank you for joining us tonight, how you have changed the country together. Thank you for doing so. But dipping into the purse, accounts are very boring, aren't they, really? I'm not going to highlight on too much. They've been published in the Cut Both Ways magazine some time ago, and they're reproduced in the report, which you've all taken home tonight, so that will ruin the rest of the evening for you. Perhaps I could draw attention, especially perhaps to page 10, the centre of page 10, which has an oblique reference to £570,000. It might be on the slide. The point is, I'm not going to tell you what it says in the report, you can read that yourself. The accounts for 2022 show a very strong asset position, 56% of it held in cash deposits. Now, as much of this has been donated for specific purposes, which are still under development, the cash resources are available to pre-fund high-value grant awards for project contractors pending approved claims. That way, the same money can be recycled 2 or 3 times to deliver multiple outcomes in delivering canal restoration. I'm often heard to say amongst my colleagues, you can do anything with money as long as there's plenty of it, and the power to spend it. That's a key thing, the power to spend it. Equally, my colleagues will testify to my saying, what does it cost not to do this work? Always look at the negative. Where are you if you don't do it? So it's so important to realise that we have funds in hand, and it's my job on behalf of the board to make sure that we are receiving those funds and spending them wisely. And you see some displays on the back of the hall here, where we are currently spending. After the 22 accounts, I must say, we spent a month, nearly whole of last year, putting together 3 different grants which amount to £350,000, and they're now being spent on the Balfour Moors project. And without having that cash in hand first, you can't engage the contractors without paying them first. And then you get the same money back from the grants and spend it again, and again, and again. That's what I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Can I ask somebody to propose that we receive Bob's report, please? Thank you. And anybody to second?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Jeff. So can I put that proposal to the vote, please, again by a show of hands? Thank you very much. So we're now moving on to item 6, which is the election of trustees. And we have 3 trustees due to retire by rotation and who are eligible to stand for re-election, and the rogues gallery is up on the screen there. So they are Christine Ball, Jeff March and Christine Howells. I'd like to propose that they are re-elected, please. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Colin. So I'd like to put that to the vote. Do we accept those 3 trustees? Thank you, congratulations all, and congratulations on your re-election. And can I just say thank you for all your hard work over the years, very much appreciated. So we're on to item 6B, and we have 1 co-opted individual on the board at the moment who the council would like to nominate for election. And this is Caroline Haybart, who's on the screen here and also sitting in person at the end there. And I would like to propose that Caroline is elected to the Board of Trustees. Do I have a seconder? Yep, thank you. And so I'd like to put that proposal to the vote. Can we accept Caroline onto the board? Excellent. Congratulations, Caroline. You can now change your sign on the front of the desk. Considerably, I think. So we do have one other nomination. We've been notified by the Inland Waterways Association that they have nominated Ivor Kaplan, who may be online, he's actually on holiday at the moment, to be our new IWA nominated director. And I would like to propose that he is appointed to our board. So I propose that. Have I got a seconder?
Many of you will know Ivor Caplan from the past. He was the guest speaker when he was national chairman for the IWA, spoke at this hall about 3 or 4 years ago. So he's very well known to us, family member from years and years ago, a perfect person for the role.
Thank you very much, Bob. So you are seconding that on that?
No, not at all.
So again, I'll put that to the meeting. Can we see who's in favour of that appointment, please? Thank you very much, and congratulations to Ivor, and we're looking forward very much to working with him. So we're now on item 7, which is the appointment of the accounts examiner, Danes LLP, Chartered Accountants. Bob, would you like to say a few words on that?
Yes, we can say that for the 14th year running, Danes have produced their charity commission version of my A4 sheet of accounts in 33 pages. It has to be done that way for charity commission purposes, and the numbers are the same if you can find them. But that's why we don't issue this to everybody. I struggle with them because I know the numbers, but they're laid out in such a way to satisfy charity commission regulations. We engage Danes and continue to engage them, and I'd like to propose that we do take them again into the next year.
Thank you, Bob.
To save any embarrassment, Madam Chairman, I'd like to propose Danes accept the position again for another 12 months.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very
I'd
much.
like to propose that.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Thank you. A number of seconds. So again, I'll put that to the vote to the meeting, please. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So we're now on to any other business. Does anybody in the room have any AOB that they would like to raise with the board at this point?
Well, may I say a few words?
Of course you may.
It's very difficult on this occasion for me to say much, but except what I said last year, and they've only put it down here, the fact that Eric Wood gave a short speech. Well, I'm going to make it even shorter this year. Thank you all ever so much for joining the trust and for being a part of it, especially those people who are working on the ground. We are very lucky to have such talented people, and I mean this in all sincerity. We're very lucky to have you all, Peter, Norman, etc. I don't want to go individual now, but you're a brilliant group together, and you're doing a magnificent job. I'm very happy the way things have gone on since I resigned, and it was the year 2000, remember, when I resigned as chairman. You accepted my resignation as chairman, and you made me president. So there we are. Thank you all ever so much for what you do. You're devoting a major part of your lives to all this. I know, because I spent a lot of my life when I retired doing it, and it's jolly hard work. It's not easy, and I know you're difficult. You meet some difficult times ahead. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for your support.
Eric, thank you for your inspiration to all of us. You've given us
Absolutely.
a good head start in this program.
Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you.
Because we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for you and your colleagues starting this all off back in the day. So
All right.
thank you.
All right.
And you are an absolute inspiration.
May I just say one other thing? Don't buy me any presents this year, because I'm donating my birthday to anybody who wants to give any donations for my birthday. It's online, if you want to give anything.
Thank you.
You'll put it on there.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, and noted, and that's just typical of your generosity. Thank you. I have got one item of any other business, and it's the tricky topic of a review of membership subscriptions. So we've got some slides up on the screen. I don't know whether you realise this, but we've not increased our subscriptions, with the exception of one very tiny increase from £5 to £6 for retired subs, since we started in 1988. And in that time, inflation has increased by over 250%. Can I just settle you down? We're not proposing to increase them by 250%.
Oh, yes, we are.
We have to talk about it. So just to give you an idea, so when we received £10 in 1988, it has the spending power today of about £3.62 because of the impact on inflation, just to give you an idea. And when you compare our fees to other similar trusts around the country, ours are either the lowest or joint lowest of all of the other trusts. So it seemed right that we had a look at it, so the board has recently done that. Now, subscriptions are a really important part of our income. We can't do anything without money. We wish it were otherwise, but that is the reality of the world that we live in. They're used to fund our restoration costs, our running costs, and to make things happen, and to actually deliver a fantastic legacy for Lichfield and Hatherton. And they also provide cash flow. So we do apply for grants, and we're very successful, thanks to our talented team, to actually secure grants, but sometimes you have to pay for things in advance and you need the cash in the bank in order to do that before you can claim that back. We'll just move on to the next slide. So the current situation is we have 2,423 members, and that equates to 1,526 subscriptions. And the difference is that we have family subscriptions, and the average is about 4 people per family. The subscription income that we had in 2022 was 14,500, and people were kind enough when making their subscription or renewing their subscription to donate almost over £4,000, which was just fantastic. There is a cost to administering membership and producing it both ways, and that's about £5,700. So our net income from this source, including the donations, is about £12,500. And that's a lot of money to us, and we're very grateful for everybody who has contributed in that way over the years. So we looked at loads of options, and I've tried to summarise them on one slide here. And you can see here we've got the subscription categories on the left-hand side, and then you've got our current fee. So an adult fee is currently £10, the subsidised ones are £6, and then we've got different amounts of subs for groups, for families, and lifetime memberships. Now, if we were to just increase them by inflation, you can see that £10 would become £25.27 overnight, which we felt was too much. And a lifetime subscription for a family would be £779.18. I used to be an accountant. I can't help working things out to the nearest 2 decimal places, so do forgive me for that. So I looked at that and I thought, there's no way, that's just inappropriate. What if we choose a date somewhere in the middle, 2012 or 2007? And again, some of those increases would have been too much to bear, because we're also aware that there is a cost of living crisis. So we were trying to balance the two things about our costs have increased. We do want to be successful and have the canals restored and reconnected and in water. So we then looked at what comparator trusts are doing. And some of our comparator trusts have been charging much higher sums for quite a number of years. So what we did as a board, we had a really good discussion, and we came up with what we hope is a sensible balance of all of that. So for example, an adult subscription would increase from £10 to £15, which is just over £1 a month, and the subsidised ones would increase from £6 to £10, which again is less than £1 a month. But that will help us to increase our income substantially without it being, hopefully, too much of a burden for people to pay. And our proposal is that for new members, we'd introduce that in the current year, but for those who are already members, we will do that from the new year when they come up for renewal, so that we've got a chance to engage with people, to explain, to answer any questions or concerns, and go from there. So just in summary, we did have a look at the impact of not having raised subscriptions for so long, and the lost income that we didn't collect as a result, and that's quite a substantial sum if you look at the numbers, really. Just a reminder, the costs have gone up by over 250% since we set them all those years ago in 1988. We know that increasing them for inflation is too much to bear, so we didn't go there. We looked at it and decided that was not appropriate. So we've tried to pitch our subscriptions to be broadly similar to other trusts. So it would bring our lowest annual fee from £6 to £10, and that is absolutely in the pack with all of the other trusts, and still generally remains towards the lower end. So we've tried to get the right balance. Now, this is a decision that is reserved to the board, but we're all very keen to be open and transparent and to listen to what people have got to say. So the reason it's here this evening is to share that with you and just to sort of take any soundings, really. So I'll open it up.
Can
Gentlemen.
I ask you a question? What is the cost of the magazine that goes out? What is the yearly cost of the magazine?
Yes, I'm just
Yeah.
liaising with
Membership administration appears in the accounts, in fact, total about £5,000 in a year.
Well, you know, you're not covering the cost of the magazine.
Well, we're just about covering the cost of the
You
magazine.
know.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are quite happy to pay money. But put a price on the magazine.
That is something that somebody else mentioned only this week, actually, that for members we
It's
could,
subsidising.
but for non-members we
It's
should,
subsidised.
yeah, we should perhaps charge
Just by getting the
non-members.
magazine.
Okay,
A lot of people do
do.
choose to have the magazine by email, which does cut the cost down a lot, so that does
Yeah.
help.
Can I support you and say, I believe the magazine is expensive, but it's the only way really that we have of getting in touch with members.
It's
And it's got to be done. But I've always said, I know the Treasurer will not agree with me on this, I've always said it's more important to make friends than to make money. Because if you make friends, the money will come in it. And that's what happens.
Yeah, well,
So
we're hoping to,
don't be over ambitious.
no, we're not. And that's what we're trying to do, Eric, is to get a balance
Okay.
that is reasonable and similar to other trusts. Gentlemen there. Yes, sir.
Obviously, a lot of our members, your members, are going to be in the cloud pensioners. Now, a lot of these people do not have the facilities or the ability to have smartphones, computers, therefore they can't go online. If you charge a magazine, you're going to be discriminating against these people.
Okay.
And
Can I,
that's something that's a lot of Saga magazine have just turned down on Welsh on lifetime subscriptions because they're going all digital.
can I just clarify, sir, there's no plan to stop printing cut both ways. We appreciate that some people do prefer it online, other people prefer a hard copy. Some people like to have both so that they can refer back to it and so on. There is no proposal to stop cut both ways having a printed version at this stage. The only thing we're thinking about is for non-members, we might want to sell those at some point, but we haven't made a decision on that. We're just exploring options.
Non-members want to buy it without being a member in charge. Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions about that? Because this is your chance to, just let us see what you think.
Well, if I may, just to say that I haven't, since the Dartford Moors narration that I did, that I will be available for any drive that you wish me. The only thing I can offer is my name and my face. You have both.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
When and if I can help in any way on your Facebook, on social media,
Thank you very
that you
much.
need a
Thank
bit.
you.
Does that go for Sheila too?
Absolutely.
Tony, you indicated that.
I would just like to say that I think I would support those increases in membership fees. I think they're doing £10 too long, and 50% increases well within what I think we should be charging.
Okay, thank you very much for that view. Is there anything else? I'm seeing people generally nodding. Is there, do you have a, yes? Let's load it back.
Well, I just read in the news that there's been vandalism. Was the damage very serious?
Sadly, we do get this from time to time. There was a smashed window in our hurt. There was on one of the diggers as well, wasn't there? They were chucking sort of bricks and things around. It was just mindless violence. These people, they drive me mad. I think, what is the point of doing that? And again, we have to then pay to put it back. And that's money that's not going into restoring the canal. It makes me want to cry. It's awful. And there's zero chance of catching them, you know, unless you catch them in the act, and even then, there's very little in terms of consequences. But again, that is another cost to us, sadly. Thank you. Okay, if there's no more comments on that, can I thank you very much for listening to the explanation and for providing your thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, I have got one other piece of any of the business. You know, as you can see from and hear from what my colleagues have said this evening, this is a really exciting time for the Trust. There's so much that's been achieved by our volunteers and those that support us in other ways. We've got loads that's underway. The project down at Darnford Moors is just so exciting. And as Derek's outlined, we've got a whole pipeline of work for planning applications and discharging planning permissions and so on. Really, really exciting. And I just wanted to say thank you for being part of this. All of us, in our own way, are contributing to creating a fantastic legacy in this area that's for us, for our children, for our grandchildren, and for the community as a whole. So this is really important to us, and we're passionate about it and grateful to you. But very, very finally, our President, Eric Wood, is celebrating a birthday tomorrow, and we have a card for you, Eric. And I thought it might be nice just to end to sing happy birthday to Eric. So if we could. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Eric. Happy birthday to you.
All I can say is I feel on everybody's side at night. I'm in a very fortunate position that I've made so many friends through the Trust, and really it's been an amazing lifetime experience for me. And I'm only sorry that Dory left me in November last year, and we'd actually, now this is interesting, we've actually been together 71 years and 6 months. Now that is incredible, isn't it? I mean, that's a good Thank you ever so much. God bless you all.
God bless you. So that is the end of the formal agenda at the AGM this evening. So I'm going to suggest now that we have a 15-minute break. There are refreshments over there. The loos are out on the landing. Most important is our shop at the back. Please buy our merchandise. We've got plenty of time. In fact, we have to walk past the shop to get to the refreshments. So we designed that on purpose. So can we get back together at 8:15, please, for our guest speaker?
This opportunity to come and say a few words about our work. We're going to be talking about the restoration work, the river restoration work in the Tame and Trent valleys. The talk is approximately 45 minutes, but we'll see how we go. It's awfully warm in here, and as we dim the lights, I'm sure people might be getting a little bit sleepy. I've got an ambitious number of slides, so I'll just rattle through as best I can. Let's keep it informal. If you'd like to ask any questions as we go along, please pipe up, or if you prefer, perhaps at the end, hopefully there'll be a bit of time for questions as well. So the project itself is called Transforming the Trent Valley. It's a 5-year project, and we're into our 5th year already. It culminates next March. This is the project area. Hopefully you can just about make that out. We've got Lichfield down here, just to give you a sense of geography, and Burton upon Trent here. And it includes the floodplains of the River Trent, all the way through here and down past Derby, and also includes the floodplains of the River Dove and the River Tame coming north from Birmingham and the Black Country. It's 200 square kilometres, and the main thrust of the work really has been to repair our rivers, and you'll see that as we go through, that they're in quite poor condition, to link them with their floodplains, and then the other projects that are involved with it are actually looking at, and this is where the similarities are with your great work, is to encourage access. So that might be footpaths, it could be canoe trails, it could be cycleways, things like that. To get the communities in the local area involved and in love, and back in love with their floodplains and their rivers. And this is the overall ambition of the project. We see it as a jigsaw piece. So the 200 square kilometres that I showed just then fits in with a source-to-sea project. So the Trent rises, as many of you know, above Stoke-on-Trent, on the edge of the Pennines, and then runs all the way down into the Humber estuary. There's a real opportunity in the next few years, perhaps, to link these jigsaw pieces up in the landscape. A lot of the work, a lot of the catalyst for the work is actually gravel pit restoration. And as these quarries finish the resource and they're restored, we can actually strategically link them up so we can have areas, meaningful areas of reed beds and wetlands and wonderful areas like this, wet grassland. Many of the areas can still be farmed. In fact, it's quite important to farm areas of wet grassland on floodplains for things like wading birds. And then, of course, if we can restore them properly, you get the aesthetic, the landscape value that you can see here. It's just tremendously beautiful to restore these landscapes, as you can see here. So, to link in with the title, The Mini Mississippi, going way back, a lot of river scientists and geomorphologists, when they started to look at the River Trent and its floodplain, they made some comparisons with the mighty Mississippi. And the quote here is from the early 20th century from a river scientist: prone to meander, braid and avulse. And I think most of you know what a meander is, but the braid means that it runs in multiple channels. It's not just a single thread channel. And avulse means it can quickly change direction. So you have these multiple channels that are migrating backwards and forwards across the floodplain, digging down into these wonderful gravel deposits that have been there since the last ice age, and generating these wonderful habitats. And this is still happening today. The river, especially the River Tame and the Trent and parts of the Dove, they have this ability to just breach into the floodplain and then carve out these wonderful bits of habitat. And this was a maize field that was left in the floodplain. The river breached across it, and within 6 months you had these wonderful new channels. So it wants to be set free. The natural processes want to be restored. And that's the comparison with the mighty Mississippi, which we'll come back to a bit later on. And we're seeing it in parts of the River Trent. This is at the top end of the project area, just upstream of Wolseley Bridge, where the Wildlife Trust has its headquarters. We didn't restore this bit of river, it did it itself. It's quite a rare thing to happen, but the river, it may look a bit of a mess to some people, but what we're seeing here is it's broken out of its straitjacket. You've got trees that are falling into the river that have drifted down, have lodged into these areas of shallow water. In turn, that's captured sediment, so areas of sand and gravel that you can see that's being processed and sorted in the background. The river cliffs on the back here is where the river is migrating and eating into that bank, eroding naturally that way. And this is wonderful habitat for things like kingfishers and sand martins. So these are the reference conditions that we're quite keen to reintroduce back into the Trent Valley. And these are some other ones in the local area. So this is the bottom end of the River Dove. And again, just from our point of view, very beautiful habitats. The river is broken free from its straitjacket and is migrating across. And in so doing, you're seeing these wonderful areas of shallow gravels called riffles. And where the water runs across those, it oxygenates the water, and you get rare invertebrates, such as the river saucer bug, which we get very excited about, but maybe not everyone else would. But perhaps more exciting is the return of the Atlantic salmon to the Dove River catchment. They were reintroduced in the late 90s to the River Dove, and they've fixated on it, and they're returning each year. It's a great conservation success story. So it may surprise some people that salmon were able to make their way all the way up the Trent, get into the Dove system, and then head all the way back up the Dove system into the Peak District to spawn. But they need habitat like this, not only for spawning, but if they're heading further upriver, they need places out of the main flow to rest as they continue their journey. So I just wanted to show an example of that. This is the same area that I just showed some pictures of. So to give you your bearings, this is the A38. That's heading towards Derby. That's just down from here is Burton upon Trent, and then that's the River Dove that's just about to head down and then to join the Trent just a little bit further downstream. And then this is the Eggington intake. So it's a Severn Trent water facility that takes water out the Dove and then pipes it out into two reservoirs in South Derbyshire. But what we're seeing here, so this picture was taken in 2003, and if we look exactly 7 years later, the river has moved 70 metres in 10 years. I'll just run that sequence again. It's a bit distracting with all the hay cuts that are going on. So 2003, 2010. So this whole area, all these habitats have formed in 10 years just by itself. We didn't do any restoration work. It just wanted to do that. And luckily, the farmer here is a poultry farmer. He was aware that the river is moving and eating away at his land, but it's not impacting too much on his business. And since then, it's actually stabilised quite nicely. So it's not, since then it hasn't carried on coming this way. And the thing that's stabilising it, I think, is the fact that trees are starting to grow naturally along the outside of that bank. Do we have a question?
What's the water quality
In the River Dove? In the Trent. It's improving overall. We still have problems with, this in the press at the moment, with sewage getting into the watercourse from combined sewer overflows. So we have, I'll be getting into this a little bit, we have urban areas in the headwaters of both the Tame and the Trent that are big impacts on these rivers. The Dove is a little bit better. There's less settlements further up, but it still has problems with agricultural runoff and some impacts from Ashbourne and Leek and a couple of other settlements too. But generally, I was talking about invertebrates and getting excited about, those are the indicator species that if you're finding things like river saucer bugs in this part of the Dove, they're nowhere else in the upper Trent. So they're very special species that are telling us that the water quality in this particular ridge is good. So just to step back a little bit and give you a bit more background, the River Trent, it can split up into many channels, and in some places, certainly if you go to the washlands at Burton upon Trent, you can still see the river running in multiple channels. Although they are fairly regulated, they are the original channels that ran across that part of the floodplain in that urban area. But the rest of them, as we'll see, have been heavily regulated and heavily modified. I wanted to make the point about the headwaters of the Trent and the Tame it's just an unfortunate thing that you've got these massive conurbations that have developed in the headwaters of these two rivers, because they take a long time to recover, not only in terms of water quality, as we were just touching on, but also in terms of river structure and river processes and natural function. So this is up in Stoke-on-Trent and the Potteries. And then just to labour the point a little bit more, most people when they see this, most of our rivers have been deepened and straightened. Maybe some of the meanders have been kept. A lot of them have been chopped off. But what you have are these effectively canals. They're uniform width. There's very little habitat for fish, for invertebrates. There's very few plants growing there, very few trees. And if you get a flood, or if you get a pollution incident, as it comes downstream, the fish are washed down to Nottingham in no time. Or if there's a plug of pollution, it will literally kill everything as the plug comes down, because there's no complexity to the habitat in that particular reach of the river. And this is just going back, this is 1947 Trent Trust, I think it's the Trent Catchment River Board doing their work. And they really took their job quite seriously. There's a rail line that's been put in, the river, all the gravel's being stolen from the river and taken away for road building and house building and things like that. You might just be able to make out some of the trees that have been taken out from the bankside edges. They're all being chopped up and removed as well. And this fossilises the river. The river really, in many cases, it will take hundreds of years before it can start recovering. In some cases it never can, because they become embanked and you're just still seeing these same trapezoidal channel shapes hundreds of years later on. So in many cases, someone needs to come in appropriate areas to do river restoration. And that's kind of the rest of the talk is looking at those appropriate areas and some of the things that we've been doing. Before we move on to that, I just wanted to talk about the character of this particular part of the Trent Valley. There are clues in the landscape, so there's obviously been a lot of modification, there's been a lot of settlements that have been established on the river terraces, and what's lovely is that you'll see Drakelow as a name coming up again and again, not just in this area, but in other parts of England, and the actual name in Old English, I understand, refers to dragon. So when they were finding these skulls of woolly rhinos that were left after the last glaciation in the river gravels, they thought that they were finding bits of dragon remains. And so if you do see this name, there used to be obviously Drakelow Power Station, just near Burton-upon-Trent, that's obviously, the towers have been removed now. But that's one to look out for. I mean, I've lived in this area for over 25 years. I can't pronounce the name of this. Thank you. And that refers in Old English to place of the older swamp.
Can you go back to the last one a minute, please? You've got area floodplain used for farming, 92%. Do you know how much building goes on the floodplain now?
So we haven't got I haven't got a percentage, but I could find out.
Because that would be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, the number of houses at the moment that are being built on the floodplain, just incredible.
Yeah.
I can't believe how the local authorities let them get away with it.
Yeah, and you're right. So once they're in, they need to be protected, and it's taxpayers' money.
Problems.
Yep. No, that's a very important point. And in fact, not far from here at Alross, there are houses that are on the floodplain that still need to be protected.
But I can tell you, the district council refused the application because of that very reason.
Yeah.
The local one said it will flood.
Yeah.
And we let that because the Environment Agency said that. And they, because they didn't object, we could defend that.
There are reasons on the floodplain.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe that they built it so low.
And that was our line.
Well, we always say, yeah, don't put your white carpets on the ground floor if you. No. So yeah, just a few. I mean, if you've got any more, that'd be great. But there's clues in the landscape. If you look at the old names, Home is River Island, Ridware is like Mason Ware is River Dwellers and Ford Dwellers. Catton Hall, Catton Farm. I mean, it could just be a normal cat, but it could be a wildcat. There were wildcats here, up until a couple of hundred years ago. So yeah, if you do have any more, it'd be lovely to hear from you. Right, getting on to the restoration. So we're talking about over 25 years of river restoration in this area. There's still much more work to do, but here are a few examples from this particular reach that I just wanted to share with you. This one looks a bit strange. So this was, just to get your bearings, this is Tamworth, and this is the River Tame as it's running north. This is the old Middleton Hall and Dost Hill quarries that are now an RSPB nature reserve. But before they got there, we worked with the quarry, Hanson, to do some river restoration, and it was very simple. We widened the river out, made it twice the width, and then left a series of canal boats down the middle. which everyone was kind of, at the time, just thought was completely bonkers. But what I wanted to show you is how it's worked. It's been really successful. And we've got some aerial photographs to show it. So this is 2003, once again. So the original phase of work was done in 1998. This is a few years on. You can see already that you can't really see the canal boats separated in the way they were before. And this bit has become wet woodland. This bit has become swamp and a lovely backwater. And you've got deposition of fine sediments coming out. And if you move on, we did another phase of work in 2005. And then you can just see, so this is 2010, so another 7 years later. And it's just turning into wet woodland. And it's a bit distracting because you've got all the new RSPB wetlands that are being developed at the same time. But if I try and run that sequence again, and this is what it's like on the ground. So from imagine a canal-like river, trapezoidal, and then we widen the river out, and all this amazing habitat is formed naturally. We're ecologists, we're into wildlife, so what we're thinking is hopefully we're throwing a lifeline to some of the elusive and rare, and maybe not so rare wildlife in there. The main aim is to get the base of the food chain going. So if you've got mud and sand, and you've got cliffs, and you've got trees that are drifting through and stopping, this is all habitat for different types of things. Whether it's a cranefly larva or a freshwater mussel, they all provide food further up the food chain. And that's a point we wanted to labour a little bit. But yeah, if we run that sequence again, 2003, a few years after we did the initial intervention, and 2010. And you can just make out there's another mile, another kilometre of restoration going right the way up into Tamworth. So very ambitious, very experimental, but it's worked. And we were able to disseminate this information nationally and internationally to say this on this particular river, this technique is working beautifully. So I just wanted to show you a few other techniques that we've used. This is on a straight bit of river, just at the Catton Estate between Croxall and Burton-on-Trent. So you've got a straight bit of river that needed some intervention. And what happened was there's some limestone pitching, toe protection that was put in at the base of the bank here. We removed all that, and then underneath was all the spare gravel that had come out of the river when they did the dredging. And we were able just to screen that gravel and put it back into the river. So something like 13,000 cubic metres of gravel was put back where it belonged, back into the river. And because the rivers during spate is quite energetic, it was able to disperse it, and it had these wonderful instant habitats that were forming there. So very simple, quite cheap, and another technique that we've promoted nationally. Some other experiments that we did was to try and restore some river islands and mid-channel bars. And what we were doing was mimicking natural processes. So what happens naturally is that you have willow trees that will drift down the river, they'll hit a bit of a shallow area or a riffle, and they'll lodge there. If they're there long enough, they'll actually send down adventitious roots into the base of the river, and once the roots are formed, that's the process, the beginnings of a river island formation. So you can wait, and occasionally you'll see this happening, but we wanted to try it. So we're looking at old maps to see where these mid-channel bars used to be and where these river islands used to be, and we got our massive excavators out. So we've uprooted a tree from a donor site, so a living willow tree, shoved it in the river with a root plate facing upstream, and then covered it in gravel and let it grow. And what you get is actually a shoot channel that you're seeing here running either side as well. So it accelerates the water, you get oxygenation, and that seems to be working quite nicely. River widening, so it's another example of the one I showed you earlier on, but perhaps on a slightly more ambitious scale. This is our nature reserve at Croxall Lakes that we bought in I think it was about 2005. And what it was like before was, it was okay, but in terms of a nature reserve, it was pretty quiet. So we had a few breeding skylarks, and then you had to kind of stand on the edge of the bank to know that you had one of the biggest rivers in the West Midlands right there at the base of the bank. So we did an experiment to widen it out and let the river build its own habitats. And hopefully you'll be able to see that from these aerial views once again. So this is our nature reserve, and the idea was to, opposite the confluence, so this is the Trent, looks like a small river. This is the Tame, running past the river island, and then it carries on as the Trent this way. And then you've got the River Meese coming in here as well as part of the nature reserve. So this is 2003, just before we did the works. And there's 2010, just after we'd finished. So I'll run that sequence again. You're talking about 43,000 cubic metres of soil that had to be removed from the floodplain and put into these. They either have to come off the floodplain or you can put them into existing lakes. And luckily we had some nice deep lakes that we could put this material into to create reed beds and swamp habitats. And yeah, any gravel we found, we created islands with them and bars. If there was a dearth of gravel, then we just left these embryonic type features and allowed the river to do its own thing. And that's going great. Incidentally, I don't know if you remember from the beginning of the presentation, I was talking about channels being able to form. If we run that sequence again, if you concentrate here on this maize field, you should be able to make out that scour channel that I was showing earlier on. So the water has just lifted out somewhere about here, travelled across the maize field, and then ripped out this new channel. And this is what the river wants to do. It wants to migrate, it wants to form multiple channels, and we're just giving it a chance to do that, to express itself as it were. And then we monitor it. We have to bring in we have a science team, consultants and academics that come in to do the monitoring here. The new technology with drones and laser scanners helps us a great deal. So we can get before, during and after, and then we just do repeat scans as we go to see how the new habitats are forming and obviously what's happening beneath the surface of the river as well. And that's what it looked like just after the project had finished. You got this, to my mind, it looks quite beautiful, but you got these new deposition islands and mid-channel bars and islands forming. And again, we're studying not only the geomorphology, the physical structure of the river, we're studying the ecology from the base of the food chain up. So things like crane flies. This is a thing called the spined loach, which is a really rare fish in the UK, only lives in eastern flowing rivers, and is doing very well now in this bit of restored river. You'll be familiar with the mayfly, the green drake mayfly. We've just had a big hatch in the last couple of weeks, so keep an eye out for those. And then we also look at things like ground beetles and shingle beetles that are good indicator species of these open habitats. And you're familiar with the bullhead that likes clean water and oxygenated streams that come into this area as well. And as you move up through the food chain, you're not going to have things like snipe and lapwing on these sites if you haven't got things to feed on. So those cranefly larvae and the molluscs that are down in the mud are critical for these things to get the energy and the calories that they need. Right, so just another example is a little bit downstream from Croxall is a place called Tucklesholme Quarry that we bought, I think, in 2017. And we're still restoring the site, but one of the things that we did there was to lower the floodplain and let the river in on this particular reach of the Trent. So you can see it's pretty simple again. We just got the digger drivers to remove 5,000 cubic metres of soil. Any gravels they found, they asked them to leave, and then they shoved that in the lake. And then the river, as you can see, as the river rises, it breaches into this area to form its own habitats. And it's looking sensational, year on year. And just to quickly make the point about, we're working with mineral companies, we're working with mineral operators, with the county council, with the Environment Agency, all the interested parties to you know, there's no point putting a new jet skiing lake next to your new nature reserve. So it's got to be coordinated. These jigsaw pieces that I was talking about earlier on, they have to be placed in the right position within the floodplain so it all makes sense. So many of you will be familiar with Kingsbury Water Park. It's almost like a microcosm of what we're doing on a wider scale. So at Kingsbury Water Park, they've got zones for wildlife and for nature reserves, and they've got other areas for boating and trains and noisy activities as well. And it sort of works, but if you can spread it out and make more sense of it, that's quite important. So the other thing that we've been doing is influencing the restoration of these quarries. They used to be, in many cases, intensive farmland, and as the mineral's been extracted over 20, 30 years, some of it does go back to farmland, but it quite often is the lower grade. In most cases, it's easier to create wetlands and linked bits of floodplain. So this isn't actually the river, we've just designed it so that it mimics a river itself, and then we've got backwaters off this lake itself. So we're just trying to get as much variety as possible, so that you've got a mosaic of sort of low intensity farmed grasslands, you've got wetlands, and then you've got other areas as well that people can enjoy. And I keep going on about wildlife, but while you've got these quarries in place and they've got huge diggers, you might as well get them during the life of the quarry to dig a few ponds or scrapes or backwaters while they're there. And these are just gold, absolute gold for wildlife. So if you just had huge, massive lakes all the way down through the valley, it'd be great for ospreys and a few other things for wintering wildfowl. But what would be missing is habitat for things like grass snakes and newts, water beetles, etc., etc. So having lots of variety is absolutely crucial. And it sounds like you're doing similar things in your project area as well. So just not only wetlands, but we're also looking to have bare ground habitats, so exposed cliffs and bare grounds for invertebrates. We're almost there now. I just wanted to make the point that we're taking out weirs where we can. So this is on the River Dove. This is one of the largest weir removals in Europe, or certainly it was, at Dove Cliff Weir. The Environment Agency led on it. It has now been completed, but it's worth, if you ever get into that area, to take a look at it. It's fantastic what they've done there, because it's just restored the natural function of this whole reach of the Dove. And salmon, although they could just about get through during high flows, a lot of them were waiting for the water to rise, so they were wasting precious energy before they could get through and continue their travels upstream. So that's made a huge difference, not only to salmon migration, but also to the natural function of the river itself. And I just wanted to finish up with an example that we did as part of Transforming the Trent Valley. This is called Cherry Home. So to get your bearings, if anyone knows Catton Hall, Catton Park, so you've got the A38 running here, you've got Croxall that I was talking about is just upstream of here, and then Walton-on-Trent is just downstream. This thing here is Cherry Home, and what had happened in the 50s is that it was an island, it was a 9-hectare island, and the channel was filled in, the whole river was dredged, and all the material that was won from the dredging was used to fill in this channel. So we turned the clock back by digging this channel back out to restore a 9-hectare river island. And it was done in 2 phases. So the first phase was done in 2013, where we did about 400 metres, which effectively was a backwater. And then we came back in 2020 to link the River Trent to the backwater, and completed that. And hopefully you'll be able to make this out. So this is a digital terrain model that we got from using the drone survey mapping. And can you now make out this new channel that runs? So that's the backwater that was dug, and then the new channel work. And that's, although it's in low flows, that's just showing the new channel and then the inlet channel, which we we strengthened it by using a huge poplar tree that we keyed into the edge of the river, which is still there, which is kind of lucky really. So that's the main river channel, and that's the inlet channel, and it runs on through to join the wet woodland that I was describing. And we don't just do it and walk away. We have to, because it's private land, we have to monitor it, make sure it's working okay, that it's working for wildlife, that it's working for the landowners, that it's working for the natural function of the rivers and associated wetlands. Yeah, a lot of this work wouldn't be possible without the army of volunteers, similar to your stuff, I'm sure, that get involved in our projects, the colleges, the universities, the schools, the special interest groups, the midweek volunteers, international students that come across. They've all got stuck in and helped us with the design, with the liaison with landowners, with the monitoring as well. So it's just wanted to say thanks to them. And a lot of them are doing their own fundraising as well. So in Tamworth, we have a whole network of groups, local groups, that are doing their own fundraising and making it all work for the floodplain, for the local communities and the health of the river. The future, well, I think we've got another at least 25 years of restoration to do. It's already looking beautiful in places. The people that live and work in this area aren't travelling so much to get away each weekend to the Cotswold Water Park or whatever. They've got it on their doorstep, increasingly. It's right here. Canoe trails are becoming in place. People are enjoying, when we do the restoration, if it's like that, trapezoidal shape that I was talking about with a bank of nettles, you're not going to have a picnic on the edge of that bank. But once you've reprofiled it, it becomes a river beach. People come in, they enjoy it, they listen to the river, their heart rate decreases, all of that wonderful stuff that goes with proper restoration. So, it's not just for wildlife, it's for people and wildlife. I'd love to see this valley, before it was intensive farming right up to the edge, all the soil that was being washed off into the river each flood was just unsustainable. So now that the quarries are finishing and they're being restored, they're still farming, but it's way back on the upper terraces of the river, and the lower terraces are now nice bits of river with linked floodplains, with these multiple channels, places to explore, to relax, to enjoy, and yeah, we can still farm bits of it as well. I think we'll leave it there, but thanks so much for bearing with me throughout this. Lovely to see so many people this evening and people online.
We have time just for a couple of questions for Nick, if anybody's got anything that they would like to ask or say.
But just a quickie, if I may, considering the meanderings of the riverbeds, thinking in terms of the 16th and 17th century, I'm talking about pre-canal. My God, what a wonderful job Telford and Britain did. And what difficulty they must have had if they were trying to get navigation along the meandering and wandering beds. Could change in 25 years. You see, quite easily. So when you consider that, they did a wonderful job.
We've always said that the people that did the original river engineering did an amazing job. It's making it very hard for us to come in and restore bits of it. So, yes, but they obviously had the funding and the political will to do it as well. So, to build a railway track purely to extract gravel from a river, that's pretty serious.
It was financially viable, wasn't it? That's why they did it, and making money out of it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the industry was founded on the canal system, so we wouldn't be here today without that.
Absolutely. The lady in the back room,
I just wondered, if you're removing weirs, doesn't it speed up the water?
So there's different reasons why the weirs were put in the first place. In a lot of cases, you're right, they were put in to act as energy breaks or gradient breaks on the rivers to create ponded features further upstream. Many of them have just become defunct. So the one that I showed you there at Dovecliff was semi-breached. It was becoming dangerous, and you just have to take a decision. Is it actually serving the function So the original function was to actually divert water through a mill lead back into an arm of the river to run a mill. The mill's no longer there. So the restoration of that, the weir removal, made sure that there was still a feed of water that ran through into that mill lead to keep that wet. But in answer to your question, not really. So a lot of people think that, you know, because the water's coming over and you're getting almost like a mini waterfall and you're getting oxygenation, if you look at the whole reach, it's actually impacting quite badly because you get polluted silts that lodge up and drop out upstream of the weirs, and over many, many decades, that can just carry on for sometimes miles. So you're getting polluted silts with water running across the top of it, and then it drops out. So you're actually losing oxygen from the water. Yeah. Yes?
So early on, somebody was talking about the water quality, and we know that historical water quality is poor because of the urban origins of the flow. To what extent do you include pollution mitigation in the works you do?
So to get our rivers back into good health, there's three pillars, and the pillar I've been talking about tonight is purely the physical restoration of the watercourse, and it's the bit that's often forgotten or poorly understood. The other pillars, as you rightly say, the main one really is water quality. So you know, you could put meanders back and split channels. If you've still got filth running through it, you're going to get very little wildlife that's going to be taken off there. When you get flooding events, all that poor water quality and polluted silts are going to wash out onto the floodplain as well. So you're absolutely right. The thing I would say is the water quality has been, you know, a problem for a long time. It's just because of campaigning, especially in the last maybe 2-3 years, that I think the water companies are starting to feel the wrath of the public. It's become, I can't believe it, but it's actually become a much more political issue that's right the way through into the halls of power.
The agricultural pollution with the nitrates in the hospital.
Yeah, so we're talking about the whole thing. Yeah, so there's an awful lot of information. So you could pick any river in the West Midlands, in the Trent catchment. There's information on all those rivers, what the key stresses are. So whether it's agricultural runoff, whether it's chemicals, whether it's road runoff. Road runoff is huge in terms of its impact, or whether it's combined sewer overflows that are causing part of the problem. Yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't. So in any areas, what people are hoping for is to have bathing water quality. So you could go and swim in the Trent, you could go and swim in the Tame in a few years' time. And so there are rivers that are being designated elsewhere in the country, Yorkshire and other places, where they've got the bathing water quality as an ambition. And of course, once that's in place, everyone has to do their bit, whether it's farmers, whether it's regulators, whether it's water companies, to make sure that when you swim in that river, you're not going to get ill. So that could be the most important thing, is actually registering some of these rivers as bathing water quality sites.
Right, it's approaching 9 o'clock, so I suggest that we thank Nick very much for a really interesting talk, very important areas, so thank you very much. Just drawing to a close with a few thank yous. So thank you all to you for coming this evening, to my colleagues here as trustees for responding to questions and making their presentations, to our IT guy over there who's making things work very smoothly. To those of you online that have joined us today, thank you very much. And to everybody here at the centre who's worked hard to make sure that we've got a really good room to meet in. Thank you very much, and safe journey home, everybody.